So best of 5 finals. Very familiar best of 5 finals. In the top left of Gresvan, it is Team Liquid's Clem. In the bottom right, we have Mao's Esports HeRoMaRinE. These two battle out in the finals more often than any other combination of finalists, I think. Even though MaxPax has definitely been appearing in more finals over the last year, I'd still say these two face off the most in the finals. HeRoMaRinE still holds the most first place medals for EPT EU Open Cup. And I think he still is ahead by like 20, maybe, compared to Clem. Now, in the last 6 months, this matchup has been heavily Clem favored. Since September, Clem has gone 5-1. And all of these were in finals. All these were best of 5s, actually, which is kind of coincidental. Most of them were the Open Cup. One of them was the regionals. One of them was the Basilisk Big Brain bouts. So Clem is favored. That much is fair to say. Clem is favored. At one point, Clem had the most trouble in TvT. Really seemed quite uncomfortable in it, but he's fixed that. He looks totally fine. Now he just looks a little uncomfortable in TvP, but he did get to the finals yet again here, despite facing some Protosses. But favored against HeRoMaRinE in TvT, that is for sure. That is for sure. So HeRoMaRinE might evaluate himself as a little bit of an underdog, but whatever he's evaluating himself as is usually pretty accurate. I mean, HeRoMaRinE has some funny takes on things sometimes, and very absolute takes, you know, very little wiggle room. But I would say he is a very good judge of his own skill. I mean, that might come off as pompous, but just generally it's pretty good. So anyways, I'm sure he's evaluating in his head what he needs to do to win against Clem. And if he is thinking himself like a little underdog, not like, you know, oh, I can never win against this guy, time to bring out the cheese, then perhaps sneaking in a 1-Rax expands high ground, though, is that little bit of attempt to get a little ahead. And it is very little, especially because it's on the high ground. When it's on the low ground and you get away with the 1-Rax expand, I think it gives you a 3 SEV lead. There used to be a time in TvT where it was way more common to have a 1-Rax expand versus factory expand, and then everyone started doing factory expand. So I've forgotten what the number was, but I think it's 3. And that was like almost guaranteed made up for by the factory expand player with a little bit of this or that micro. Speaking of micro, Clem just lost out in the Reaper battle. The Hellion popped out to help, but I think Clem was already losing it anyways, so didn't expect that, did you? But when it's high ground 1-Rax expand, I'm gonna imagine you're only ahead by 2 SCVs or only 1. I'm not sure, but the point is, a lot of other things in a TvT are gonna determine the outcome of this game. But it is such a tiny little thing you're kind of getting away from. And if you were gonna do it against someone, Clem's probably a safe enough bet. Clem's not very often gonna be going for a 2-Rax expand. So HeRoMaRinE, 1-Rax expands, high ground, no SCV scout, so he is saving some money. He is getting ahead financially, or supposedly. He's actually still behind a worker. And he's most likely not going to die to a 2-Rax against Clem. But I'm still looking at the numbers here, and I'm like, well, this didn't favor HeRoMaRinE at all. I don't know. How does this work out? HeRoMaRinE has... There we go. He's got half an SCV ahead. Oof, that doesn't feel really worth it. Well, there's many reasons that Factory Expand has dominated TvT in the last 2 years. And I think one of the reasons was that the 1-Rax Expand player wasn't really getting all that far ahead. Wasn't staying ahead for very long anyways. But anyway, you know, going on. Moving on here. We do have a medevac drop coming in for Clem. Double Cyclone harassment. Immediately finds HeRoMaRinE Cyclone and takes it out. So now there's nothing of HeRoMaRinE that can target fire this medevac, which means a lot of micro can occur from Clem. I mean, his Cyclones are injured. They are a bit glass cannony, so it's not going to snowball dramatically. But that does kind of suck, because those guys can get repaired and go back out on the map and be ready to intercept you know, a tank push or the Ravens coming across the map. So, and HeRoMaRinE can't do anything similar. And he can't just park the Cyclone in the main base to help out against a future drop because it already failed on defending the first one. HeRoMaRinE does sneak a Raven by, however, as the Cyclones are still in the medevac, went back home. Was that on purpose? He A-moved his SCVs, that was weird. Anywho, first auto turret wasn't particularly impressive. Second auto turret, still not all that impressive. 3 SCVs killed versus 1. Overall, Clem taking the better resource trade, of course, but very tiny details. Third CC's coming up for both players at pretty much the exact same time. Barracks coming up for both players at pretty much the exact same time. Biggest difference right now is that HeRoMaRinE has his tech lab on a barracks. Clem does too, but Clem's out of money. What? No. No, HeRoMaRinE has a third Raven. Third Raven, and he has faster sim. I guess the SEVs having to be pulled actually did contribute to that. Okay. Super small details. But right now, HeRoMaRinE is winning in most places. Higher Raven count, higher tank count, higher SEV count. A bit slower in the third. Faster engineering base. Clem's move out doesn't look like it has a whole lot of potential, but it comes down to the execution. He's at least going to try and get up in HeRoMaRiNE's face. Did HeRoMaRiNE get a faster mule with his faster orbital? I guess he did. He must have, right? He did have a faster orbital at the end of the day, for sure. So that's a point. Yeah, that's a point in its favor, for sure. Clem hoping to find an opening, and I think he's found it. 2 tanks on siege to get into a better position, but the interference matrix coming down aplenty. 1 tank of HeRoMaRiNE trying to save the day, and it might just... Clem not able to take that down. Might make it so that HeRoMaRiNE can hold, but it is a bloody hold indeed. A little bit of last second micro coming through as well. Just a little bit extra. And Clem is certainly in the lead. I mean, good on HeRoMaRiNE to emergency defend with that SEV pool. He will live for another day, but he is in tough shape, at least economically. Maybe not that tough. 7 workers down isn't all that bad. He's still mostly saturated on his bases, and the gases will be filled at a later time, which might cause him to be later to +2 or something like that. But his mineral income is probably fine enough. And with the mules dropped, I suppose at the timing that they are, they're actually better than Clem's currently. Good repair in that tank. That really was a bit of a savior tank, honestly. That thing had multiple shots on Clem's army, and it was so close to being target fired. If Clem's third tank was an interference matrix, that thing is definitely dead. But Clem had like 2 tanks back here, I think, firing. Maybe only 1, actually. So, way to go. Way to go, hero tank. Hero tank for HeRoMaRiNE. So the TvT is close enough that HeRoMaRiNE can definitely mount a comeback. I mean, it's not even really a comeback, to be honest. Clem got so caught up in that aggression in that micro that I'd say that probably is what caused his 1-1 to be so late. I mean, his engineering bays were later. I didn't check when he built them, but they are now considerably later upgrades, insanely late upgrades. So that's a big issue. And HeRoMaRiNE's 4th CC is already close to halfway done. Clem's is just beginning. Not that big of a difference. No, HeRoMaRiNE's totally fine, actually. You see that many SEVs killed, even on 3-base economy, and you think it's like a 13 SEV difference. And that's even recoverable for TvT, so true. But it was only 7 worker difference anyways. These two remain quite evenly matched, but those upgrades are quite worrying for me. Clem is going to finish up as 1-1, so it'll be even for another 45 seconds. But after those 45 seconds, I'm a little worried. HeRoMaRiNE will not just have the upgrades, but he'll be ready to do stuff with them, too. So he's securing his 4th base right now, shoring up his defenses. if he waits till 2-2 to do anything, he'll have 2-2 upgrade lead and a maxed out army, and his base is defended at home. Seems like an ideal situation. Of course, he doesn't know quite how far ahead he is on those upgrades, so he might not be looking to push the issue. Still looking to be on the defense, ultimately. Defending his 4th base, trying to leave some tanks back on his 3rd to defend against this, but Clem is going to micro the hell out of these Marines and make sure that tank does not get the most effective damage possible. I'm sure HeRoMaRinE is trying to counter micro, by the way, trying to focus fire on the clumps of Marines, but however you slice it, HeRoMaRinE had trouble defending the left side and is now having some trouble defending the right side as well. The upgrades are 8 seconds away from finishing, but where are the Marines? HeRoMaRinE can't be winning Marine battles without Marines. That's just how TvT is going to work, guys. 7 more SCVs go down. HeRoMaRinE on the verge of losing this 4th base. If he loses this 4th base, that is the first domino, and the rest of the dominoes will fall very, very quickly. HeRoMaRinE is in dire straits. His little Marine run-by attempt, it would be surprisingly effective if it had a couple of medevacs, just because that upgrade would have been a real kick, but he didn't have medevacs, so he still was outgunned, isn't the right word? Out-survived, I guess. But it is difficult to kill a Terran player, isn't it? Very difficult. Clem, usually at this... Oh, he was misrallied. He actually misrallied for a while there. That was so many units in the main base. Unless he thought he was going to be doom dropped. But anyways, you know, typically at this stage, in order to break your Terran opponent, generally the agreement is that amongst the Terrans is that you go into 3 starport. That's the next level of progression. You go into 3 starport, the guy who's barely defending, trying to hold on for dear life, can't do the same thing. And also build an appropriate ground army. So you overwhelm them. That's the kind of the idea. What Terrans learn, especially thanks to Maru, is that you can kind of get by with building basically tanks and Vikings, and you can go into your own triple starport, and you don't have to just fold over and die as soon as they get a couple of Vikings and Liberators. And all the complications and back and forth and decision making that goes along with that type of idea. But you still find people going triple starport if they're in the lead, trying to kill the other guy. Clem isn't. Clem is not. Clem is going into 8 racks, so he's going to have a lot of production. And what this is going to give him is a lot of reinforcements, a lot of momentum. It's going to give him just simply a lot of Marines, which means that he might take battles you don't think Marines should win. Like if there's 7 tanks sieged up, but the Marines are numerous enough and in a concave, they might still win that. Command center just went down as Clem, of course, starts dropping. He's got so many units. HeRoMaRinE might have a higher quality army, and that's not actually true, but he is now going to be surrounded, and this is exactly where Clem would want to take a battle, as if he was surrounding his opponent. But the funny thing is that Clem's Marines aren't here. So yeah, he kind of got us around, but this side wasn't like, very intimidating, and this side was tanks that weren't actually firing on literally everything that HeRoMaRinE had, because all of his Marines were killing HeRoMaRinE's production in the main base. If the Marines were with that concave, that surround, I guarantee Clem wins that fight, and here we go with reinforcements. Now we do have successful fight there for Clem. But with the way that that was positioning, again, if Clem had 20 Marines here and 10 more Marines there, I think that's like a slam dunk victory for Clem. That is like no problem, especially because their upgrades were even too. But his Marines were elsewhere. He had to wait for his 8 racks to rebuild Marines. That's kind of funny. And when I said that Clem was killing HeRoMaRinE's production, it was kind of a lie. He was killing units, he was killing reinforcements, but the production still remains up. Main command center side. So HeRoMaRinE might still be able to hold on, but Clem does have 5 bases now. His production's been going this entire time, and he is looking to capitalize on his superior resources, his superior army. With the 3-3 upgrade being done for HeRoMaRinE, it's actually kind of arguable if Clem's army is better, but the point is his tanks are sieged. His tanks are unsieged? I don't know. But his tanks are sieged, they're making sure to leapfrog. Liberator joins in the fray too, and now HeRoMaRinE is up against everything he can't really deal with, because HeRoMaRinE never got to add on anything extra. He never went to 3 starports, he never went to 8 barracks, because he was holding on to his life this entire Terran versus Terran. He didn't really have a lot of flexibility to say like, oh, I could just go ahead and throw it on whatever I want. He was trying to survive. And maybe he could have afforded either or. If this weird kind of base droid hadn't just happened, taking one orbital command of the equation, that's a mule every many seconds, right? That's a big deal. HeRoMaRinE should be feeling like the end is near, but he's not going to give up too easily. He is going to fight back. Perhaps his army supply is still close enough that if he takes one good engagement, he could counterattack and cause some real chaos to occur. That's always a hope in TvT. But as the seconds pass by, Clem just gets to be a bigger and bigger army. The upgrades have evened out again as well. So HeRoMaRinE probably more so hoping that his opponent just severely messes up. And, you know, his leapfrogging of his siege units are resulting in some pretty critical snipes. He just killed a tank there because Clem had to back away, but he doesn't want to back away completely because if he knows he backs away completely and HeRoMaRinE sieges up like here, for instance, then he's going to lose access to that base. Could be a snowball effect, losing this access to the base. Like, he can't just give up his positioning. So he's trying to take it as slow as possible and build up more army. And he does have about a 20 army split, well, 10 army split, actually. That's not really all that much in TvT. But what he has, again, is that potential for a huge concave. And those tanks are pretty spread out at this point. Clem's not going to pull it, though. He doesn't really have to, is the thing, right? He knows he hit his opponent's economy pretty hard. And this is a 5th base. You know, if it dies, it's not the end of the world for Clem. So he's not going to rush into things unnecessarily. Now this, he could probably take, yeah. Oh, well, he just runs away because his tanks were just blasting on HeRoMaRinE's. HeRoMaRinE is trying to play the most technical leapfrog game ever. He is Frogger crossing traffic right now, and here comes the gigantic car. It's a truck. And Frogger kind of just jumped out of the way, actually. That was not a bad fight for HeRoMaRinE. Oh, he dodging, he weaving. He's jumping across that traffic, man. He might be doing it. But this was an insanely technical army. It was almost mech. It was tank liberator, and by liberator I mean like a single liberator, because this one just like stuck over here. And he was just trying to catch Clem out of position, unable to take the best fight possible with his mass marine strategy. And he did it. He successfully did it. Clem tried to break here, and it was unsuccessful. And HeRoMaRinE continues to leapfrog forward. HeRoMaRinE might still win this game, even without a main orbital, even without as much production as his opponent. He has taken, I guess, cost-effective enough fights. Maybe the resources lost was way different 2 minutes ago. And he has taken out this base. He is looking at the 3rd base. And if he looks at the 3rd base, and he takes that down, then he's looking at the natural and cutting off all reinforcements. Wow. I actually thought Clem was going to have multiple opportunities to take fights. You know, maybe it isn't an end-all be-all fight, but at least it would have been effective enough for Clem to remax faster because he has so much marine production, but that's not the case here, HeRoMaRinE. With the technical skill on display there, utilizing, well, the most important unit in TvT, I suppose, the siege tank, to great effect, just won the game. And you know what really sucks too, is that if Clem had taken up a minute to build Vikings, he gets 4 Vikings. That's not a lot, right? But it's still 4 Vikings. He would have been able to do the same thing. He would have been able to use a technical army against his opponent. He would have sieged up the tanks that he had, drew the line in the sand, and then got the Vikings clear out his opponent's liberators and got his own liberators. But he just stayed purely on marine tank medevac production, thinking that he would do well, and I'm not blaming him. I thought he'd do well too. And he loses. HeRoMaRinE's out for blood today, man. Max Pax defeated him 4 times in a row. Not a 5th. Not today. Clem defeats him 4 times in a row. Well, not really, actually, but still. Clem defeats him more often. Not today. Of course, we'll see what happens. We have a lot more best of 5 to get through. The bottom left, down a game. He is Clem. On the top right, through perseverance, through thick and thin, wins game number 1. How about that? HeRoMaRinE. Where does thick and thin even come from? I mean, what is origin? Derived from an old hunting expression, through thickets and thin wood. Oh. We are learning today. Learning. HeRoMaRinE playing some Mighty Fine StarCraft 2, but Clem was right there with them for so long. And because it got so action-packed so quickly, I couldn't really discuss Clem's strength going into that ARAX. So I explained why the ARAX is an option and what it can do for you in this type of game. But I did not get to mention how much I think that Clem would work better with an ARAX. I've said this before. I think Clem is worse, and by worse I mean just lesser than, not bad. He's still very, very, very good at it. At this triple starport thing. He's good at it, but it's not his best. I think with his style of play, I really do like the 8-racks with him. And I like it with Kelazur, and I like it with Bjorn, right? Bjorn's definitely the best at it. And there are some players who I think are just going to be better with the triple starport, that kind of more technical aspect to it. Technical is kind of a... I don't know if I could define the word technical, but I think you guys know what I mean. It's just the Viking tank Raven is just so much more good positioning, slow, methodical type of play than Marines, which are really just like, go, 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 go! Go, go, go! Pew, pew, pew! So I really thought that Clem was setting himself up for victory for more than one reason. I really thought he had it. he probably did too. But HeRoMaRinE is, no doubt about it, one of the best Terran players when it comes to that technical style. He has gone toe-to-toe with Maru. Not always, to be clear. I'm not putting him on the same level as Maru, but he has defeated Maru with a combination of good mechanics and good build orders and a little bit of maybe luck on his side. But he's also lost against Maru, but the games were incredibly close. And to go toe-to-toe with Maru's late game Viking Raven tank stuff, that's already impressive. If you can survive against that for 5 minutes, you're already pretty freaking impressive, even if you end up losing. So at the end of the day, I also think that Clem is just maybe looking at it as he would be worse if it did go to triple starport versus triple starport. If HeRoMaRinE was going into triple starport that last game, and then Clem did too, he would lose the battle. He might be thinking that. I don't know if he does, but he might. We have a micro battle, which is quite entertaining. And it looks like HeRoMaRinE's gonna win this. He did win the Reaper War last time. Oh, I spoke too soon. Spoke too soon. Spoke too soon. Spoke too soon. No, I didn't speak too soon. I nailed it. Clem tried. Oh my god, he tried so hard to win that Reaper battle. HeRoMaRinE wins it by having one Reaper. I mean, it's not a big deal, but still, cool micro. Cool, cool, cool. But yeah, I think if Clem... I wouldn't be surprised if Clem admitted that he thought that HeRoMaRinE was better with triple starport. The funny thing is that HeRoMaRinE never got to do triple starport in that last game. That is the funny thing. He really did not have an option to add on Vikings and Ravens. He was too broke. He was too desperate. So that's why I said, oh, that's a bad lock on from Clem. Woof. So that's why I said, it's kind of funny. If Clem had just decided, I'm just going to throw in Vikings, Hail Mary, he would have at least shut down the Liberator leapfrog before HeRoMaRinE all started making his own Vikings. But HeRoMaRinE, again, didn't have triple starport. He would have been making Vikings on Liberators. Like, it just... It's funny how that endgame played out. Well, we got ourselves a close TvT for game number 2. After all the micro battles said and done, no one really gets that far ahead. We're HeRoMaRinE a little ahead by the work account, by the army count, but very, very tiny amount. 3rd CC faster for Clem. And no other harassment opportunities by looks of things. HeRoMaRinE with 2 Cyclones to his opponent's 1 does have that map control. So he can be a little bit more of a bully. But he really doesn't know what his opponent's doing. So the Cyclones would love to just stay on the common attack areas, the attack paths, and intercept whatever they could. But what if Clem went for a mid-evac drop? They'd want to be back at home for that? Clem did not. Clem's going into his own Ravens. HeRoMaRinE's also going in Ravens. Ravens for everyone. HeRoMaRinE's going to be the one that pushes out. Cyclone's leading the way, making sure that nothing is going to surprise them, like tanks on the high ground here. They're going to get sights on the setup of the Terran here as well. It's another one of those tricky maps where if you choose a base to defend, you really choose a base to defend, you know? You can't siege your tanks here and defend this space. Really. And you kind of can't defend this space either. Like, look at that, look at that. It's the lock onto the tank. That starts off the good battle. That tank goes down. Auto turrets get thrown down here by HeRoMaRinE, so Clem's tanks are going to be enough. The auto turrets weren't the best. They were a bit reactionary by the looks of things. So they threw down on top of the Marines and the Ravens, possibly. Didn't care. Oh, good lock on from Clem this time around. Nicely done. But they couldn't help kill the tank. So Clem's 2 tanks still being able to fire away was a pretty big deal there. And so Clem will hold. But like I said, it's like, you know, your units are over here. They're really not helping to hold here. And Vikings landed on those tanks to the left side, cleared that out entirely. Clem going to try and break out of this with an SCV pull. Also a couple of disables, which are critical. If these disables don't happen, a lot more units lose their lives, that's for sure. And Clem will successfully break out. 3rd TC on location, so the SCVs just go ahead and maneuver over there. 6 killed overall is putting Clem down by 5. Definitely recoverable. And he's on a bit of a chase. Trying to chase down this last Viking. Must realize that HeRoMaRinE is going to try and defend that. And his Ravens, I believe, scouted that tank sieging up. So he's going to take a chill pill. Stim is done for HeRoMaRinE. About to finish up for Clem. With all the micro that's been happening, I'm guessing that's why HeRoMaRinE has yet to start up his combat shields. Hopefully he does remember. And he does have, once again, faster upgrades. The question is, are they considerably faster? If Clem starts his 1-1 as soon as his bays are done, I don't think it's that bad, but we'll see. Things are once again going to get action-packed. Big drop in the main base, or as big as you can make one, I suppose, at 7 and 8 minutes. Interference Matrix plus Vikings land equals pretty successful break? Question mark? Yeah, okay, there you go. But Clem is not done. He's actually just rallying his units across the field. Now jumping on top of the 3rd CC that doesn't have any protection. HeRoMaRinE does clear out his opponent's Ravens. No Ravens for either opponent right now. And, well, it looks like the 3rd CC of HeRoMaRinE is at the very least going to have to be lifted. SCVs pulled off as well, many of them dying too. This was a good attack from Clem. Getting into those faster medevacs gave him that mobility. HeRoMaRinE went for those Vikings, which were supposed to be able to guard against something like this, but they weren't totally successful, and they just died. All of them are dead now. So Clem's going to continue rallying, thinking that he's got an opportunity. Oh, he gets that last tank too. And HeRoMaRinE is in a buttload of trouble. Down 30 supply. He doesn't have anything protecting his tanks. Clem is thinking about dropping. Where do I drop them? They're going to drop them on top of this left side tank, and that is going to kill the HeRoMaRinE. GG. Clem. Striking fast, striking hard. Taking the series back. All tied up now, 1-1. In the bottom right, we have Clem. Top left, it is HeRoMaRinE on Babylon. One of the shorter maps in the map pool. So Clem choosing to go for those medevacs was really the kicker, strategically. A lot of the time, Terran versus Terran does go into 4 Vikings for each player, or maybe one gets 3 Ravens, another one gets 2, and then Vikings. But Clem opting to go for 0 Vikings right into medevacs gives him a burstier type of composition, one that zooms around and drops places that hopefully the opponent isn't covering and just blitzes in and gets out because it has stimmed units. Now these units don't have combat shields yet, and there's not that many of them, I suppose, but they're excellent at being quick and efficient. And the downside of it is that, you know, if HeRoMaRinE were to defend that potentially flawlessly, if everything's in the right location, if he identified it, maybe get a faster sensor tower, maybe to insert in the main to help out, something along those lines, then Clem has, well, a similar composition to the last or the first game, which is more Marine-based. And HeRoMaRinE has a composition that, when it's entrenched, it's very good. The Vikings scout out for the tanks, stop any liberators from appearing, stop any medevac drops from happening. You know, what we saw in the first game. So it was an important distinction between the two builds. One that I didn't quite catch on to fast enough. Thank you for the 200 bits, Kyogu. And it's kind of a tricky thing. It's kind of a... It's not, you know, it's not cheesy. It's not all in. It's not, you know, a dick move. It's just a slight difference that can have dramatic impact if it finds that right opportunity. And as effective as that looked, because Clem ended up winning the game off of it, remember that the initial drop wasn't that great. It really didn't do a lot. What it did was force those Vikings to land, so Clem saw that they weren't going to be able to shoot his medevacs, so he picked up on the medevacs, then went over to a third base that was very hoppable. This is the best way I'll put it. He's very hoppable, right? So then he can kind of snowball in that fashion. But yeah, there's definitely examples of that change up, because I think Kelazur does that too, where the defending player, HeRoMaRinE in this case, holds against that first drop kind of like a little clumsily just because it's a surprise and they have to go, oh shit, medevac's dropping me. But they do hold, and then it doesn't really do anything from then on. So don't give too much credit to the medevacs coming out first and foremost. It's not the secret to winning all of your TvTs on ladder, I'm sorry. But it definitely can be a way to change up a usually very similar type of mid-game or early mid-game TvT when we're like, well, I got Vikings and you got Vikings and we got tanks, and it's a grand old time. Speaking of medevacs, both of them going for a medevac opener, one going for Cyclones, that's Clem, and HeRoMaRinE going for tanks. So the Cyclones have more microability. A tank has a little more of that firepower, which would make them okay against a Cyclone, especially because it could be micro, but that's two Cyclones that could micro, and one could lock on, and the other one could lock onto the medevac, and it just... I'm not sure there's like a definitive better or worse. I don't know if this is rock, paper, scissors versus scissors, right? Like, but in my opinion, I feel like I like the Cyclones better. Oh, it's only one Cyclone. Well, my bad. Sorry. Cyclone maybe is not as good. I don't think one Cyclone is all that impressive. And HeRoMaRinE gets to unload and siege up his tank before Clem does anything to him too, which is kind of also a bit of a bummer. Clearly, Clem coming from the backside though. Good target fire on that Cyclone, and okay, both of them are gonna skedaddle. Oh, I don't want So a little bit of this and that, a little bit of micro. Clem has a slight SCV lead, but HeRoMaRinE's not done with his micro yet. He's got to be careful, of course, because they both have the same ability. They both can hit each other's main bases. They should both be taking that into account. But the map pool has a lot of very open, wide, large main bases, so... Clem's tank couldn't cover this drop. There is no tank for HeRoMaRinE, actually, in position, so it's definitely not covering Clem's drop, and we got ourselves a little SCV trade going on here. Oh, great lock-on from HeRoMaRinE. Good mass repair from Clem, though. Oh, the micro and counter micro between these two. Hot diggity damn, that is some good stuff. No, the Cyclone should definitely live. Okay, all right then, all right. Some more damage on the other side of the map as well. I can't really track both things at the same time, sorry to say, but we do have this handy counter, and it shows that HeRoMaRinE has taken far more worker damage, but then HeRoMaRinE isn't done yet, so perhaps he'll get more worker damage onto his opponents, and, well, maybe not. Maybe not. 7 to 13 workers killed. HeRoMaRinE down by 7. And no other things favoring him. He doesn't have faster upgrades, doesn't have faster command center, doesn't have faster stim. Straight up, Clem is ahead. Now here's something that's interesting. HeRoMaRinE's gonna go into mech after all is said and done. Last game I was gonna bring up the possibility of mech, because HeRoMaRinE's definitely thrown mech out in the open cup before. But but I really didn't believe it myself. But here we go. Mech's coming out from HeRoMaRinE. Finally, his drop is cleared up thanks to the power of the triple Raven. HeRoMaRinE just satisfied with 2 before going into his own Vikings. And now we have, I think the story is, does Clem figure out that his opponent's going into mech? So HeRoMaRinE's extra little harassment killed 5 more SCVs, drawing them in closer with the economy. But if we look at the graph, of course, Clem had a bigger spike. Well, HeRoMaRinE's spike actually isn't that much smaller. Actually, is that bigger? I think it's bigger. Anywho. But I think the really important thing is realizing that Clem is up against mech. That's going to change up literally his composition, and then also the way that he actually plays this out as well. How aggressive he is, how many times he tries to drop, how active he is on the map, how much he worries about being harassed himself, how much he's worried about being dropped himself. That changes when you realize that your opponent's going into mech. And if you don't, you know, probably the worst thing about it is that you don't have those Marauders being trickled in that gives you that little bit of an oomph. They can survive a couple of tank shots and they can kill those tanks pretty quickly. Having pure Marine tank against someone who's going mech is generally not that great because those Hellions are so great at helping out. Especially when they get Blue Flame. And just in general, the Marines don't kill tanks very fast. So they might jump on top of the tanks, but they may not be able to kill them. So that's a downside. But there's a time where it doesn't really matter whether you're going mech or bio. There's a time where both styles look basically the same anyways. Same number of units, or similar number of units. And it's just about the tank Vikings. And this is one of those situations. Tank Viking versus tank Viking. Interference mages coming down as well, of course. Clem gonna get one of his tanks punished. Oh, nope, maybe not. Just kidding. Yes, no, maybe so. Nope, that tank's alive. Okay. Finally goes down. This one's gonna go down as well. And HeRoMaRinE is slowly taking back the grounds here, which he definitely needed to do. He needs his third CC back on that location. Lickety split with all 6 gases mining gas. Medevac's gonna go into the main base right into a missile turret, and that Medevac was already injured, so it gets taken down easy peasy. And HeRoMaRinE is even going to decide that now is the time to initiate a bit of a counterattack. You don't usually see a Terran player who's playing mech get aggressive this early on in the game, but if the moment exists, then absolutely take the moment. And Clem was not at all prepared for that. His tank sieging up awkwardly, 2 alone and 2 undefended, get overwhelmed by the mech player. Which, you know, isn't really what you hope to happen. You hope to have so many more units as the bio player. But you only have way more units after your production's done. After you've had a couple of production cycles, which just doesn't happen that quickly. Again, for a while, TvT is quite similar, whether you're going bio or mech. But before the bio player can get to a big bio ball, sometimes that tank count of the mech player does get a little intimidating. If HeRoMaRinE didn't race across the map at such speed to now be sieged on Clem's natural, it would only take 45 seconds for Clem to probably build a big enough bio ball to concave. But now it's a little bit dangerous. SCVs being pulled from multiple directions. This is really going to be the break that Clem is looking for. Missile turrets from HeRoMaRinE get sieged up to help. I mean, they did kill the Liberator. Not that the Liberator was actually helping. It was mostly everything else in the ground. And Clem, with that hold, is going to win. Huh. I actually didn't expect that. But HeRoMaRinE was all in with that and the idea that he was rallying everything across the map. And mech, at the end of the day, totally the slower production. Absolutely. And Hellion production doesn't count, you know. Yeah, they're okay against Marines, but they're not great. So as soon as his entire tank force was obliterated, he figured he wasn't going to be able to rebuild that tank count anytime soon. And he'd be correct about that. Clem's immediate counterattack after would have been very, very good. So it does make sense. But momentum, for a second there, really looked like it was on HeRoMaRinE's side.
Resubscription received. Apparently you are doing something right, Captain.
Hardgray76, thank you for the 34 months. Thanks for all the streaming during the last 3 years. Thanks for being a part of it. So now we have Clem in the lead, 2-1. Coming in on Dragon Scales. He spawns on the top left. On the bottom right, it is HeRoMaRinE. HeRoMaRinE going for a bold strategy, going into mech, and then deciding to push prior to being close to maxed out. Because he saw an opportunity. Like I said in the cast, if you see an opportunity, you probably should take it. Especially the pro gamers who actually know what they're doing. But apparently wasn't the entire truth. Maybe he should not have taken that opportunity. Maybe he should have just said, oh great, I can continue going into 3 base, build up to 4 bases, all that good stuff. Because on a map that is smaller, mech can sometimes seem like it's worse, and it's a little bit harder to defend against the earlier stuff. Smaller maps, harder to defend, right? Things arrive on your side of the base much faster. For mech, the slow build-up, that could be seen as a weakness of them. But the thing is that when mech is ready to move out, when it's hitting that 180 supply, and it moves out on a small map, the bio player has like 0 chances to re-engage. They engage once, they want to rebuild, they want to engage again. Too late, it's a small map. So I could see a later game. Still working out for HeRoMaRinE, just to be clear. I don't think, if anyone's under the misconception that mech has to be all in, that's not the case. He was on 3 bases. There is a 2 base mech all in, but very, very rare. But he just thought he saw an opportunity, and he even saw how it could backfire. You know, his attempt to retreat when that SCV pull came in was just unfortunately timed, I think. But it's always difficult to find that exact winning moment against someone who is good at macroing. Who actually has that production and actually has those units ready to pull with the SCVs. And they come in from 2 different angles. So HeRoMaRinE, yeah. He tried it. He tried to find that one moment. Didn't actually find it. Now he's going to try something sneaky. Straight up sneaky. He makes this look like a 2-Rax Reaper build. Oh my god, I actually thought the Reaper was going to see that. That factory is awfully close to being seen. But in fact, it is a factory expand. Now, if HeRoMaRinE was hoping Clem would do something different, he is unfortunately mistaken. Wait. 75 minerals were killed. What? Did he cancel a second barracks? Oh, it'd be 75 minerals. Okay, that was weird. Anyways, I'm just thinking about what he wanted Clem to be doing. So if Clem was going to go for a 1x expand and then saw that it was a 2-Rax, he might have canceled his command center or not built it. But he didn't SCV scout. And it's unlikely that Clem was going to 1x expand anyways, because TvT and factory expands are so much more common. So if HeRoMaRinE was hoping that the Reaper would pull back immediately and go, oh shit, and then his Reapers could have chased that one Reaper maybe? That could have been it. Well, at the end of the day, I mean, it's a normal build, actually, just different placement of the structures. And HeRoMaRinE decided to go into a very aggressive 6 Reaper, 3 Hellion opener. Now, Clem has no idea about that. So the other thing is that I guess this did was that made sure that Clem didn't even know where to scout to see what his opponent was making. The bunker didn't really help out all that much, but a landed Viking comes in surprisingly effective. He's even going to go for the SCV surround, attempt to block him out so he can chase down every last unit possible. And he will be able to now. HeRoMaRinE not getting a whole lot from that opener, despite what could have been a real shock and awe situation. And now he's going to lose a lot of those early game units, which are still important. The grenades from the Reapers really help out on the crowd control factor, and their DPS is not terrible this early on in the game. If Clem had really dominated that early fight and he had 2 Reapers and 2 Hellions, it's possible he would have tried to take on that Cyclone. Maybe not advisable, but it's possible. Or at the very least, 2 Reapers in the main would have just killed 4 SCVs instead of just 2. Either way, HeRoMaRinE is at a loss of units in general, but it's not really all that bad. The army supply is really not all that different. And it's not like Clem can immediately follow up with a tank push from that. Now, it's really interesting that Clem got a Viking first of all things, isn't it? You know, I saw that land, and I was like, oh, good thing he had that. It was surprisingly effective, but a Viking into a Raven, I think that's what it was. Is that really a thing in TvT? It's not a thing in anything. It's always a response, really. Viking first in TvZ, I guess, is still a thing, but you know, it's a reaction to stuff. Like in TvP, if they went for like a quick War Prism build or something, like a proxy Robo, I guess, or you know, our Oracle build, right? You get a Viking and a Cyclone. Then TvT, I wonder why you got a Viking first. Do you think it was Banshees? I don't know. Not worth dwelling on, but that was a surprisingly helpful unit. If a Raven came out first and then slapped an auto turret down, maybe HeRoMaRinE could have dodged out of it, right? Well. Now we go into a more expected production of Terran units. 3 racks, 1 factory for tanks, 1 starport for Vikings. HeRoMaRinE has stayed on his tech lab because he went for 2 starports. There we go. Okay. So HeRoMaRinE going for all of these Vikings he's gonna guarantee dominate the skies. No question. But he's going to be lacking those ground units. So again, we have a scenario where if Clem can get a quantity going, he can get a concave and hopefully bust his opponent. But if he can't, then trying to catch up on the Viking count, you know, is supposed to be impossible. He does have faster reinforcement, so that's always a little bit of a potential moment. But yeah, it's going to be hard. It's going to be very difficult to figure out. Clem trying to advance forward with his tanks. He's going to get disabled. Well, he disables, actually. He's going to get auto-turreted, in fact. HeRoMaRinE's 2 tanks getting disabled and locked on. Nice micro there from Clem. Means that the Vikings, okay, they're doing their job winning the air battle. The ground is not going so hot. And, you know, you're always going to have a relatively small ground army when you're pumping this many minerals and gas into the Vikings. But the point is, you're supposed to have something. You're supposed to have a couple. And just a couple this early on in TvT is crucial. I was going to say, the Vikings can also land. And then they can help dominate the grounds. They finally do. They see the opportunity. It's like Clem using that Cyclone to great effect, by the way. That killed a tank. That just killed a Raven. This thing has been awesome. And Clem just moved on to take the 3rd base elsewhere, which is really, really good. Because if he had stubbornly tried to take this base, I think he would have died. But why not just take this other base? And it's so far away, too, on this map, that it's not like HeRoMaRinE can just go, oh, well, I'm going to punish you anyways. Like, what are you going to punish? You're going to slowly leapfrog here? Okay. Yeah, you will. But then look at this concave that Clem has now. The Vikings should land, but yeah, that's already game over. Clem, not going to get bopped by that 2 starport play like he has been in the past. He's actually struggled against that in the past. But he handled that very, very well. And he will take a 3-1 victory in this week's Open Cup, continuing to catch up to HeRoMaRinE's 1st place medal count. One day I'll get there. GG's all. Thank you for the resubs today. I hope you all enjoy.